because when they had a trauma, they created a certain way of behavior. And that way of behavior was inherited through the children, because they seen their reactions in certain situations and they took that reaction, basically that habit, falling in love with someone who's married and forcing that person to divorce to marry you. That's a karmic debt, because you shouldn't actually desire someone who's already married in karma. So if you do that, then you actually, and then you had this opportunity. So you had this situation that you fell in love with a married woman is because your ancestor had a similar karma. So most of the time, like, you're going back to those really bad memories and healing or releasing different emotions, because maybe it wasn't addressed at the first time, or it wasn't addressed the same way because it wasn't coming from the same current feelings or emotions.
If you really want to be God-man, you have to work on yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually together. This is why in my training programs, I introduce things like meditation. And I check up on my clients all the time for their meditation. Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because we have some more great content coming soon. Hello beautiful and amazing people. Welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast, where we explore the edges of healing, consciousness, and what it means to break free from the patterns that hold us back. I am your host Todd Cave, and today's guest is someone who doesn't just talk about transformation, she lives it. Edith Bikis is a #1 best-selling author, international speaker, humanitarian award winner, and trauma healer with over 20 years of experience. She helps people across the globe release emotional trauma and ancestral karma, from millionaire traders to influencers to everyday people ready to reclaim their power. In this episode, we'll uncover how trauma hides in the body, why ancestral wounds silently shape your life, and what it really takes to heal not just yourself, but your family line. You'll learn what source memory healing is, why forgiveness is so often misunderstood, and how unspoken pain like miscarriage or sexual trauma can ripple across generations. If you've ever felt like no matter how much work you do, you're still carrying something that isn't yours, this conversation might change the way you see healing forever. So buckle up, because this one is going to challenge, inspire, and maybe even shake you.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So This is why like it is really hard to really crack the matrix because there's so many levels and layers to it, you know? Edith, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And hi, everybody. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk to you because when you reached out to me and I looked you up, a lot of the things that you talk about are things that I have experienced in myself where I had to do my own healing, find things that work for me, modalities. And I've shared a lot of these things on my podcast and on other podcasts, but I like to talk to people who are experts in these fields because I think they can level up on some of the concepts and things that I talk about. So when you reached out to me, I was very pleased because looking you up, you're quite an interesting person and you've been doing this for many years. So I said, well, here's an expert for some of my guests to listen to, you know? So let's dive right in. So can you take us back to the beginning? What first opened your eyes to the world of trauma healing?
Wow, that wasn't even the beginning. I at the very beginning when I had some symptoms, some mental health issues, I didn't connect it first with trauma. I didn't know that connection. So first I saw just something wrong with me right now, or right here in this reality. And then I first tried to find some energy healing remedies to manage things, to do my everyday better, to have a better everyday life. And then it took it took a year or two when I really figured out that we need to go deeper, and it is actually not a service thing which is happening to us when we're experiencing mental health issues like panic attacks or anxiety, stress, depression, but actually there is something deeper. And that was like years later when we went into family constellation therapies and then more like connecting with ancestors and so on and so forth. So the first experience with Reiki healing, it was just for managing the situation, but it wasn't enough deep and bringing down to the traumas.
Okay, so was there a defining moment that made you realize healing goes deeper than the mind and into the body?
Yes. So it's wow. It. I think it wasn't a straightforward thing, or it wasn't like one moment. So it took years and years of experience and learning and evolving when I was realizing like, okay, this is actually because as I said, first it was Reiki healing is was which was my first experience with this, and then it was more like a surface thing. It wasn't going into the unconscious mind enough. It wasn't going in because the unconscious mind is actually your emotional body. So your emotional body which holds the traumatic experiences. So when you have access to the unconscious mind, then you can really release it from the core, those in traumatic experiences. You can basically resolve those experiences. That's when actually the triggers stopping, because the triggers are the ones who's creating your negative emotions, and the negative emotions blocking your energy centers, and that make you physically ill. So it's you're not just getting physically ill because those traumas are in your body. It's not that straightforward. Okay. So it's the physical illness in your body created because your energy center got blocked because of your negative reactions towards the triggers. But the triggers exist because you have unresolved traumas in the unconscious mind. So this knowledge base, basically it took me years, obviously, and it started with the family constellation therapy when we were actually stepping into the family unconscious, and we started healing the trauma of ancestors. That was my first experience. And then later, only with karma yoga healing in 2018, when I actually started to work on my own unconscious mind and the traumas in there.
It's quite interesting that you call the unconscious mind your energy body
Emotional,
because
emotional.
emotional body, because I have mostly heard of it as like your memory bank for everything that you've like seen, like information, like when you're driving in a car, you know, when you're sleeping.
That's the subconscious. That's the subconscious mind. So,
Okay.
so there is like 4 parts of the mind, and that's the conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the superconscious. And
Interesting.
and then the subconscious, okay, so you use your conscious mind like 5% of the time. And then 45% of the time you use your subconscious, and couple of percentage of that subconscious is like the unconscious. So the unconscious is part of the subconscious. That's which holds the trauma, the guilt and shame. And then there is the superconscious, which is takes control of your actions and everything in 50% of the time.
Very interesting, because spoke to a guy called Santosh Krinsky, and he used the term superconscious mind as well. Because he is a student of Sri Aurobindo.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he had explained the superconscious mind is like the mind that's on top of everything, kind of like looking down and inspecting. And the way he described it was quite great. He said that imagine that you have like an incident or an accident that occurred in the street, and the people at the ground level, they all have like they saw what happened, and they all have a recollection of how the events happened.
Yeah.
So that would be like the conscious mind, because it's something you're seeing. But the person in the building on top that has a few floors on top can see on top. So they could see the other things that are in the peripheral that the people at the ground level couldn't see. And that would be the equivalent to the superconscious mind. So
Yeah.
do you equate how he
Absolutely.
explained?
So, but we all have access to the superconscious mind. So if you are a very spiritual person and you train yourself to access these parts of the minds, often you are the one who's actually in this accident, or whenever anything happens, you look at the whole situation in a completely different perspective, not the way how other looks, because you already have the access to the superconscious.
Very interesting. The thing is that I guess like these terms are now becoming more common now that we are definitely going through a spiritual awakening, and is quite interesting that we're getting some refinement, because knowledge is infinite and we're all growing. And I basically used to always think of it as the conscious and the unconscious mind, because I guess it's quite simple, but I guess there's a lot of nuance to it, and each part of the mind has its own job. But I think one of the things that seems to be the commonality are the fears and traumas that affect how all of those parts of the mind work. So you often talk about source memory healing. What does that actually mean, and how is it different from traditional therapy?
So source memory healing is part of the karma yoga healing, which I learned from Sumant Kaul, karma guru. He's from Kashmir. And so source memory healing also one of the Adiyogi Shiva techniques, if you heard about Kashmiri Shivaism. So this source memory healing helps you to release the core traumas, to heal, to resolve the core traumas, and allows you to stop the triggers. But while you also doing this is actually helping you, because why you people would do source memory healing, you could do on anything what is triggering you. It doesn't need to be a physical illness, but always when the client comes to me, that's my first question, like, let's do the first session on your physical issue, because I think that's the most disturbing, right? But then the next one is, okay, what's your next biggest issue right now? And it could be maybe anxiety, maybe stress, but it's sometimes maybe the relationship with your sister or with your brother, or maybe it's the relationship with your spouse, or maybe it's actually your noisy neighbors. So it doesn't matter what it is, but if something is triggering you, causing you negative emotions, feeling disappointed, angry, rage, or whatever it is, then that's the thing what we need to start with and find the root. Why those things make you feel that way? And then as we heal those, resolve those traumatic experiences, your life start to shift, because we rewrite the past. I know some trauma healers out there, or some healers out there, or therapists, or whoever you call them. They say, oh, you don't need to rewrite the past, or we shouldn't rewrite the past. There are all kinds of perspective out there. my method or the method I learned and then I love doing, and then I see the results of it and my clients' results, I love rewriting the past. And then it's just awesome. We rewrite, it's like similar to, I guess, to Akashic healing. Probably you heard people who were like doing Akashic healings. So we rewrite the past, we rewrite it in the Akashic records, and it's going to create a new future for yourself. Because of that, every time you change something in your present or your past is changing your future, because there are so many parallel future realities was already created for you. Is every time you make a decision and every second you step into one of those. But if you also go back to the past to change that in your traumatic experiences, then that also allows you to step into another parallel future reality. So many of my clients, after going through this healing process, these programs, they feel like they have a lucky syndrome. They felt like, oh, I was pulled this way, that way. I felt stuck. I felt, unlucky. I felt this and this. And then suddenly opportunities coming to me. Suddenly I feel great. Suddenly I feel encouraged and all of those things, because what was holding them back? What was causing all of those triggers is stopping.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So I always used to hear, as a kid, oh, you can't change the past, but you're not necessarily talking about changing the past. You're talking about the energy associated with past events, traumas, and
Yeah,
pain.
I would say so, because let me be clear here. This whole thing is an illusion. The reality is an illusion, right? So there is no time, and time is an illusion. Past, present, future is an illusion. So basically, going back to Akashic records and rewriting your past is right here, right now. Everything is right here, right now. So why people getting more affected by their traumas or more affected by their past or like childhood when they going through a spiritual awakening? Because the veil is thinning and you suddenly feel those things which is behind the veil, because it's an illusion, so they start to feel those things which is also behind the veil. So they started to get affected by that. So they feel more, this anxiety, the stress, the loneliness, the abandonment, all of these things, they get more triggered and stuff. So that's when they want to hermit, and that's when they, setting boundaries and so on and so forth. So then it's more necessary to go back to those places and heal them and release them, so you can actually start evolving and becoming a butterfly, transform and heal. But if you just go into the rabbit hole and you sit there, you're just gonna get burst.
Yeah, definitely. The way I see it and I understand is that the past sort of like predicts your future
Yeah.
if you don't deal with the things that caused you the most pain or were the most traumatic, because it creates patterns and cycles. So I always talk about, healing your fears and traumas. I talk about it in a very simplistic way, not as eloquently as you, but for me, because I used to be a civil engineer, so I kind of look at things from a very structural and simplistic point of view so that I can explain it to people. And I say to people that fear causes you to stay in your comfort zone. And by staying in your comfort zone, you tend to not take risks. Or when a good opportunity comes, you don't say yes to it, because you end up reliving the past event because maybe that time you were not successful. So, and I recently spoke to a gentleman that wanted to train with me, and it was like his thing was, he had trauma around money, and he acknowledged that in order for him to change, he needs to invest, whether it is to get a coach to help him in his business or to get a coach to get into shape like what he wanted to do with me. And he acknowledged that his fear around money, because of his past and his family and the conditioning that he received. And he said, I wanted to work with you, Todd, because I know that you help people with some of these challenges that they have. And I said to him, well, here is your opportunity. All you need to do is say yes. And when you say yes, the universe will shift things in behind the scenes to give you more money, to give you more time, to give you that promotion. You may seal a deal in your business, XYZ. And bless him, he was terrified to invest money in himself because he had all of these things. But I have this that's uncertain and that is uncertain. And I said, okay, I get that because I used to be on that side of the conversation where I went to a coach to help me and I had the exact same conversation. And I don't know, it seems to me, this is my experience in terms of me. And I don't know if you can tell me if it's this way for the majority of people, but I realized that I, Todd, only made changes in myself when it got so difficult and so bad that I was broken. So broken that my personality split. And and for me, that was when I made the biggest change in my life and changes. But I see that it seems to be that way for other people. So in your experience, do you think then that seems to be the case? Or there's some people who are a little bit blessed that can see the pattern and say, okay, no, I'm going to stop the pattern and invest or make changes before it gets that bad? How is it? How have you seen it in your
So
experience?
what we are talking about is that when something gets really bad and you split, and then that's kind of like when your awakening happened. It's like when you surrendered. You most likely surrendered to the divine, to the energies, and that's what brought you the transformation, and then that's how you started awaken to what you need to do. So in his situation or in my client's situation, so some people realizing their pattern, but it's really, really hard for them to break the pattern. But I think there's most of the time when someone is experiencing these patterns, they need to have a wake-up call. It needs to be a wake-up call. So it's either they feel they're struggling so badly that they need someone to help, and then it's like no other choice, urgency. There's urgency there. I think that's always the case. I had clients who were watching me for years, who knew me for years, even we were in maybe similar communities for a while and so on and so forth. And they didn't reach out until they were like really in urgency, until they were like in a really big trouble. And they said, I have no more chance, I know I have to ask her help. And then they said, oh, I wish I could come. I came to you, like 3 years ago, I don't know why I didn't come, but yeah, eventually I did. So it's there. Sometimes they can't break out of that pattern until something really like life-threatening, or really like that dangerous, then when they really make the change. And it, I think, is not always because sometimes they trust the process, sometimes they believe that maybe there is hope there, and they still pushing the agenda, and then they still are like, oh, I can still handle this discomfort, I can still live with this pain, or I'm still okay, so I think sometimes they just don't take action to do something new because they believe they are still okay, and then when they are like really not okay, then I'm like, okay, no, I need a change. No, I need someone to get me out of this hole. And then if you are right there for them, they just heard you, or you just texted them or whatever, then they are like, yeah, okay, then I'm coming. So I think it's like that. That's how it's happening.
Yeah, and this has been the same for me in my journey, where it got so bad that the only way to change was to actually make a change and change everything. And I said to him, because he chose not to work with me, and he says, I wish you the very best, but I'm unfortunately, I am telling you how I've seen it in my life and with clients I've worked with, that is going to have to get really bad for you, and your trauma is around money and investing. One of my mentors calls it lack of and poverty complex. And that creates the cycle of fear to invest, fear to spend, hold on to the money so tight that the tighter you hold on to it, the less you have. And even though I explained all that to him, he said, no, it is, I don't think it's the right time. I said, okay, I wish you the best. And I really hope it doesn't get worse for him. But in my life and the people I've worked with, it seems it gets worse before it actually gets better.
Yeah.
So how do you identify whether someone is carrying their own trauma versus the pain of previous generations?
That's really interesting because if it's your own trauma, sometimes you can't. So sometimes it's that's why I'm doing so many modalities at the same time with someone who comes to me. I offer a program for them, because I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I'm like, let's work on your trauma, so let's work on your triggers, and but also we work on your ancestors as well at the same time. So it's in this 30 days we do everything, we turn all the stones, so it's like, then I can't say like, oh, we haven't done something, so it's why is it so hard? The most likely, if it's an ancestral defect or something ancestral related, then you most likely already having huge challenges as a child, like maybe even born with diseases, or one of your family member born with diseases. That's already a sign that the whole family carrying ancestral defect or ancestral karma or stuff like that. So when ancestral trauma is more about behaviors, again, it's, for example, when I was doing family constellation therapies, what happened is, like, if you have a relationship issue with your husband, for example, or your wife or whatever, so then when we going back to the grandparents, we realize that they had fights on certain things, and then we need to actually bring peace to them first, and that will end up having peace in your relationship with your partner. Because when they had a trauma, they created a certain way of behavior, and that way of behavior was inherited through the children, because they seen their reactions in certain situations, and they took that reaction, basically that habit, right? So they seen them, they mimic them, that's how you grow. That's what you bring with you from parents. You always see them, what they do, especially under year 7, and under age 7, because that's when you are in theta brainwaves, you are like a sponge. So whatever is happening around you, you take it in, especially if it's your parents. So through the behavior, through the what they did, like habits, and then customs, all of those things you soaked in, and then you will give it to your next generation, to the next generation. And that's what becomes like a trauma pattern. That is when, for example, diabetes, like when you know that in your family line there were like many diabetes, doctors asking you like, have you had any diabetes in your family? Because maybe then you are more likely to have that, right? And it's because of their behaviors, because of their way of living, the food they eat, the experiences they have, the reactions they have towards anything around them, the same. So when you look at a child, they actually react the same way as their parents most of the time, like even if you look at cultures, like, that certain culture, they are more loud, they are more fighting, they are more hasty, and then some cultures who's more peaceful, more quiet, and then they have different actually different diseases in those cultures, or even also the food, certain countries has certain dishes, certain meals, and they have a certain diseases which may be related to that, maybe a high blood pressure because they eat always very, I don't know, heavy food or unhealthy food. So it's you inherit those things because of the customs and habits, and many times traumatic experiences creating certain behaviors and habits and customs which is inherited and coming down to your line, and then you realize that, oh, why is my husband treating me this way? And it turns out because her grandmother was like him, like she had to behave like that because she got into a trauma and she started to behave like that, and that came down to him. And then when we did the healing, then it's actually in a couple of weeks time it started to show the results in the current family, basically.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like epigenetics is being confirmed more and more today through science and I guess the quantum field and stuff like that. That our some of our character traits are not even necessarily ours. It can be from our grandfather, great grandfather, and we just do these things. And then at the same time, you have like certain abilities that you have now that maybe gifts that could have come from a grandfather, great grandfather, etc. So it's very interesting how you explained all of that. So, why does trauma often hide in the body, and what are some of the signs people miss?
Oh, that there are many signs. So one of the easiest sign is basically you getting triggered, like having negative emotions. I know that there is I see it so many times on Instagram or post or whatever. I see it so many times like, oh, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel your pain. And then I'm just like, yeah, that's the easiest to say. I mean, but it's not okay. Because whenever you allow yourself to sit in that negative emotion, you're ruining your energy centers, you're ruining your aura, your protection, you allowing other spirits, entities to enter your body, using it, for other all kinds of cravings. And you also, because your, chakras are blocked, then your prana energies is, I mean, the life force energies can't come through you. So basically, the well-being of your body start to get jeopardized. So through the glands system first, and all the other physical illnesses. Because if you think about where are the chakra system is perfectly aligned with your gland system. So the first point of situation what's coming is the glands. When you have issues in your glands, that's like, okay, you have chakra blockages, and what is happening is a result of your reactions towards the triggers with negative emotions. For example, guilt and shame is bad for your heart chakra, and also not just guilt and shame, but sorrow or grief. When people watching news and they feel sorry for the victims, or even if you're watching a series. My mom used to cry on, this TV series, soap operas, whatever. And then I'm always telling her, like, stop watching those things. Like, I mean, your blood pressure is going up, So this is insane. Like this programming, like the TV and then the news and everything is ruining your heart chakra, basically, and causing you anything in this area to get sick, like breast cancer, heart attacks, heart issues, even upper back pain, lung issues, everything. Thyroid. So many people is having thyroid issues, right? Thyroid is the throat chakra, and throat chakra is about speaking up your truths, speaking up when you feel like you kind of judged, criticized, threatened, Many people is holding back because they are like, oh, if I tell them what I really want, or if I speak up, then I kind of like maybe ruin the peace in my family, or I maybe ruin my relationship, or they are scared, to speak up. And most of the time they are the ones who has like thyroid issues and taking medications for a lifetime, and so on and so forth. So that's the first what you can realize, the hormonal imbalances. Those are one of the biggest signs, and obviously the physical illnesses.
Okay, so there's something you said that was quite interesting that people say is okay to experience these emotions and stuff. So how someone that's now listening to this, that's like hearing me for the first time, now has not had a lot of the conversations that I've had before, how would you like explain to them how to deal with a situation when they read something that makes them sad, or someone says something to them that triggers them and makes them really upset? How to manage that situation? Because I know that it takes skill, but how would you then suggest to someone to handle those emotions in the moment when they're happening?
Yeah, so there is two ways to work on this, and one of them is the mindfulness. Basically, mindfulness is when you are able to control your thoughts, you're able to control your emotions and your actions. So if you get to that point, then basically when you're experiencing that you are actually having a negative emotion, which is already a result of a negative thought, then you shift that. For example, if it's a book, if it's you said you're just reading something, then you need to look at it from a different perspective. Like, is it actually affecting my life? Is it actually something I experience in my life? Most of the time is not. So to have that, to distance yourself from these kind of situations, is like, until you don't know how to heal the root and get rid of these triggers, and then really feel more peaceful in these situations, then you need to control your current thoughts and emotions and actions. So again, how to do that? Shift into positivity. Like, I don't watch news. For example, I don't watch horror movies. Why would I? Or thrillers. I like comedies, or I like I don't know, rom-coms and stuff like that. And so I actually, but I'm also not getting triggered by them anymore because I did the healing as well. But like, I stopped watching TV many years ago, like 10 years ago. So, but the thing is that this is part of the programming. The system want to make you sad. The system want to make you angry. The system want to make you, all of this, giving you all of the opportunities to feel bad, so you get sick. You probably understand this. So to go against the system is not feeding on these negative stuff. Be happy, do things what you enjoy, do something what you love, do something what makes you happy. Ignore the things which make you sad or angry, or until you don't know how to heal the root, obviously. So how to heal the root? So if you're recognizing that you are getting sad, you crying, you having all of these emotions, then basically the source memory healing is the best tool I ever tried and done, and my clients tried and done, because they coming to me after years of speaking therapy, they coming to me after hypnotherapy, they coming to me after other modalities, and they saying to me like, yeah, this is something a great deal, and they even want to learn it. So I had clients who were Reiki masters already. I had clients who were like Akashic record readers and hypnotherapists. They came to me for source memory healing. And after I did the program with them, they wanted to learn it so they can do it with their clients, So basically, I created the facilitator program so people can learn it from it, because my guru passed away in 2022. So he's not teaching it anymore. So all of these people from around the world were coming to me and asking me to teach them. I was like, okay, then hold on, I need to create a program. So then I created this facilitator training, which is available online now. And I teached it for like 2 years on live courses, in online, basically, because they were all around the world. So I didn't do it like physically, I did it online. And now it's recorded and it's available to purchase, to go deeper into the science of consciousness and to karma yoga healing. And so basically, source memory healing why is it so special? Because it's really taking you to the root of that trigger, of that sadness, of that anger, whatever you're feeling, and clearing out those memories. It can be childhood memory. It can be past life. I'm dealing with so many past life memories with clients and with myself as well. And it's such an amazing experience, go into those places and heal those situations. And after healing it, is like literally they feel like liberated, they feel like lighter, and then more encouraged. And as I said, it's kind of like a lucky syndrome, like suddenly new opportunities, new people are coming to their life, like it's like a fresh air right after that. So it's really important to go deep down there and then find those memories. So how to do that is basically accessing the unconscious mind. You can access the unconscious mind through transcendental meditation. And this, what I learned, is the samadhi meditation for Ancestral. There are many transcendental meditation out there. The one which is the Adiyogi Shiva technique is samadhi meditation. So basically, you activate your pineal gland and you transcend to subconscious mind, which is unconscious as well. So subconscious and unconscious. So it feels like when you are in your conscious mind, that's the monkey mind, when talking the monkey mind, and when people try to meditate, they basically want to calm that monkey mind. They are like watching their breathing, they're observing their sensations, they observing their surroundings, whatever it is, whatever kind of they feel they do for meditation. And this one, as you activate the pineal gland, you basically transcend into subconscious. So immediately it's quiet. It stops. It's like when you are on the beach and it's very noisy, all the people are having fun and noisy, and you go dive down into the water and it's just quiet. Like there's no more noise if you go enough deep, So that's the difference. Suddenly your brain just stops. It's very cool. So when you are there, then you can start communicate with the unconscious mind, and you can ask, okay, I had these and these and these emotions recently. Where is the root? Show me the memory. And then the memory will come one. Okay, let's dive into that one memory, see how you felt in there. Let's release those. We release it from the multidimensional existence. So when I guide them through the release, I say a lot of sentences, because obviously I need to, as a guided part, when I need to release it from their multidimensional existence for many layers. And then comes the forgiveness part. And in the forgiveness part is when, are you able to forgive to yourself? And are you able to forgive to the other person or people? And that is also sometimes tough. So they go through the release, and then we do this after every memory. So after every memory, we do the forgiveness, and then we go to the next memory. So sometimes one session is 2 hours and maybe 6-7 memories released, Sometimes it's just 3 memories. Sometimes it's 1. It depends, what's happening, what is the trigger. So when we go into the forgiveness part, some people still say, oh, I still can't forgive to myself, or I still can't forgive to the other person. So then I need to explain them a different perspective to look life, and then to look at themselves and the situation. And then they always agree, and then they forgive, basically. Because when something happened to you, so many people is actually feel guilty when something happens to them. It's because they like, how silly I was to allow that to happen to me, right? Even if they were hurt, maybe they were 5 years old, 10 years old, someone hurt them, they still feel guilty about it. Like, why was I so stupid to allow that to happen to me? Or why was I in that situation? Or why I didn't tell it to anybody? So there is a personal guilt, which is really important to hear. And then forgive to themselves. And then the other forgiveness is to the other person. And the forgiveness is like, it's important to know that it's not for them, it's for you, basically. It's not to justify their rights or who's right or who's wrong here. Is for you to let go the situation, to release it, to let go. And as soon as you let go it's done, like it's gone from your system. So then the triggers will stop. And it's worth it, because it's worth to forgive, because the triggers will stop. So what happens if someone doesn't do this deep work, but for example, they become really mindful? Let's say there are some people who's working on meditation, working on being really mindful about when triggers comes. I'm not getting angry. I'm not getting, sad. I'm just going to be tough, Sometimes they numb themselves, And the other thing what can happen, if they are really successful in their mindfulness, and they are really can keep themselves in a really positive mindset all the time, no matter what happens to them and around them, but the trigger is not gonna stop. So there's always gonna be so many challenges, still coming to them. Maybe they're gonna go through them smiling, but they're gonna still come. They're gonna be still shitty people around them. They're gonna still get into bad situations, and they just have to walk through smiling, but it's gonna be still there. Like, where do you want to walk? You want to walk in heaven, or you want to walk in hell, right? So if you actually do the deep work, the triggers stop, so you can walk on a nice path, and not always seeing those negative situations.
As you were explaining that, there was something that came to mind I've heard before, and tell me if it is the same, which is cord cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be equivalent to the source healing, cord cutting, because you're cutting from the trauma?
No, cord cutting is not cutting from the trauma. Cord cutting is cutting energy attachments from other people. I would recommend to do cord cutting on a daily basis, especially if someone is a celebrity or knows more people, or more people know them, is because their thought patterns or their wishes towards you or their expectations towards you creating cords of attachments, and is draining energetically. So having the custom to cut cords on a daily basis is really liberating. It's really great. It's a very good, it's like having a shower kind of it. So, and then this is actually just help with those draining attachment, energetic attachments. For example, it can be even from people who loves you. You're not cutting the love cords. You're cutting the attachments of like their thought patterns or their expectations, or you still, for example, your mother wants you to get married, and then she's always thinking like, wow, when is my son is going to get married? And then that thought pattern is creating that attachments, and then it's like a cord of attachment is a bit draining, that energy draining, that she's thinking like that about you. And you don't want to hurt her, and you don't want to, nothing, but you need to cut those cords to feel lighter and better energetically.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks for the clarification there. So, can you explain how unprocessed experiences like miscarriage, abuse, or sexual trauma ripple through families across generations?
It's interesting to say like ripples through families. I don't even believe that there is any family out there who haven't experienced any of these things, what you just said, right? So I don't think it's like rippling through families. I think it's like all over the place. And it's just, they are obviously, traumatic experiences, but they come like after generation to generation, but it's like because it exists nearly everywhere, is not like a pattern, is just exist everywhere, I would say. And but what we need to understand with this is it could be more like a karmic pattern, not a traumatic pattern, which means if you create a karma of abuse, then in a later generation, the ancestral karma is actually inheritable. So you can inherit ancestral karma. So if your ancestors done a karma, you can inherit it the same way as you get your karma back, right? So if there is an ancestral karma of abuse, then you get to the point that you will have the same situation as your ancestor, as a karmic pattern, and then you want to say, okay, what is my decision right here? If you decide the same way as your ancestor, you continue with the pattern. If you decide differently and you say, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake, this is not like your ancestor done it, right? It's just like you are in a situation and it's like you need to decide. And then what you're going to decide? You're going to decide creating another karmic debt, and then that means the pattern is continuous, or you're going to decide to make a better decision. Let's say falling in love with someone who's married and forcing that person to divorce to marry you. That's a karmic debt, because you shouldn't actually desire someone who's already married in karma. So if you do that, then you actually, and then you had this opportunity. So you had this situation that you fell in love with a married woman is because your ancestor had a similar karma. And then now it was your test time. So sometimes we are tested with ancestral karma, but we always have a choice. In any karma, we always have a choice most of the time. So when a karmic pattern comes to you, you always have a choice to actually stop that pattern or to continue with it. How is a karmic pattern comes to you is always a choice. It's always like, am I gonna do wrong or right? Again, some people comes, oh, there is no wrong and right in the universe. Well, but in the law, under law of karma, there are things which creating karmic debt, and there are things which actually creating positive karma. So let's say even lying is a negative karma and a karmic debt. So there are certain moments when you decide, should I lie now or should I say the truth? And whenever you choose the lying, you're creating a new karmic debt for yourself. And then if it was a karma from your ancestors, basically continue the pattern. The karma can be also intoxication. So some people who's, alcoholic or smoking or taking drugs and stuff like that. So intoxication is a karmic pattern. So maybe your ancestors' karma was it that they were drinking heavily, and then now you inherited that karma, and then it's a choice. You going out for the first time, maybe you are 18 or 19 or 21 in the US, but you're going out, and then are you going to be a person who start drinking heavily all the time, or you are going to be the person who say, oh, I'm going to be the driver, So there is always a choice. And that's what decides, like, if the pattern is going to stop or not.
It is true that there's always a choice, but because the programming is so dense, so good, so well thought out from the system, it is almost like if you were dealt a bad hand from birth, which causes you to repeat the same ancestral karma, patterns, beliefs, ways of being, habits. So when you really delve deep into it, even though we do have a choice, which is true, I'm inclined to say that for the most part, we don't have a choice because the deck has been stacked so well against us.
Yeah.
So it takes a ginormous amount of energy, effort, work, investment, time to be able to realize that you do have a choice. Because I think that honestly, 99.9% of people technically they don't have a choice because they're so well programmed from birth. So it's kind of like one of those things where, like, I guess it's just through pain that we end up realizing that we have a choice, which is what I was telling the guy that wanted to work with me. And all the conversations that I have, it seems the pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And
Yeah.
we tend to do a lot of suffering.
Exactly.
So
You said it so well. Yeah.
thank you. Because my brain works really differently, and I don't know. I tend to say things based a lot on my experience because my process of awakening was so immense that I changed country, job, language. I changed every single thing about me. So I try to touch, move, and inspire people to realize that it doesn't really matter how hard it is, you can actually overcome. And this is why the show is called The Conscious Man 7. And, you said something quite interesting before that I would like us to delve another layer down. And you had talked about forgiveness, right? So, what role then does forgiveness play in trauma healing, and what most people misunderstand about it? Because I think that forgiveness is thrown around a lot, but I think there's a small misconception about how that works, what it really is. So can you delve a couple layers down into that for us, please?
Yeah. Also, even recently, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I read someone was saying, and she was a healer, that, oh, you don't need to forgive. So there are, as I said, there is so many perspective out there. There's so many perspective. But what I learned and what I use and what works for me and for my clients is forgiveness is really necessary, and the forgiveness has to happen to let go the situation and to overcome, and then basically to stop the triggers. So how I explain to people is, again, is not for the other person. You don't even need to tell the other person that you forgive them. Maybe they are not even interested, and it's fine. You need to forgive and let it go because of your peace, your health, your well-being. And it's not gonna justify their rights, what they've done to you. It's just gonna help you to let go and start with a new, a new sheet, with a new blank sheet in your life without that situation. So how can you actually forgive to someone who maybe, one of your loved ones, and then it hurt you, and then it's just like really immense? I always, as you were saying, that most of the people don't have a choice because from childhood they are in a certain way, how they grow up and the programming and so on and so forth. We all have a blueprint, right? And this higher self knows your blueprint, and all the spirit guides and everybody in the higher dimension, they know your blueprint. You don't know it. So basically you come into this life and there are certain things you need to go through, either because it's your karma or your ancestral karma, or some challenges you need to go through, because this is a training field, this is a game, life. So when you experiencing when you are a victim, and someone is doing something to you, hurt you, most of the time is not them. You can't point your finger on that person. Because as I was mentioning, only 5% of the time human using their conscious mind. It's only you use your conscious mind when you're focusing on something really much, because you do it maybe for the first time, you're taking a test, you're doing an exam, you doing something really for the first time. That's when the conscious mind is there. And you probably realize that when you are actually using your conscious mind, you are draining lots of energy. You are exhausted after that, you're tired. So being conscious is really tiring. So your body was programmed to actually switch into autopilot, into subconscious mind, as soon as it knows what to do. If you did something like 2-3 times, your brain already know what to do. So you don't need to be conscious. You know how to wash your teeth, how to drive to the store, what to pick up even for lunch. You go into the store, you pick up things without even thinking, That's why it's so difficult to reprogram the subconscious mind sometimes, because, all the time, because you want a new diet, but you go into the store and you pick up the same stuff like you did before. So you need to be very conscious and disciplined when you go to the store, like, this time I'm not buying the same stuff. No, I'm buying different things, So being in the conscious mind is really draining energetically. So that's why your body is switching into autopilot, into subconscious. So when someone hurts you, 45% of the time they are in subconscious, or 50% of the time controlled by superconscious. So that's the 50% is like when they actually hurt you because of their own karma. You maybe hurt them in past life. Maybe they were your wife in past life and you treated them badly, and now this lifetime they are your father or your husband, and they need to treat you back badly. You know what I'm saying? So that could be one thing. That's the karma. The superconscious is actually controlling them to do that to you. And then the other one is the subconscious, is the programming, the culture, the society. When there is a group, I had clients who went through rapes, and one of them was raped by several people, as a teenager in a party. And then she was saying to me that when they were going through her, and then at one point she looked at one guy and she said his name out loud. The guy switched back to consciousness and stopped and left. So it showed how much he was programmed by the environment, by the energy, in that group, and then the programming, the culture, or whatever was happening there. And as soon as she called him out on his real name, he went back to consciousness and he left. So that's why most of the time when you got hurt, it's not there, it's not them, they are not there mentally. Their mind is either the programming or either the superconscious. So you can't really point your finger on one person. We are puppets here, we are all puppets here. They're having fun over there, up there, and yeah, we just need to survive and feel good.
Wow, what you said just now literally just blew my mind, because I had an experience where someone had hurt me. I was involved with them, and I could not understand why they hurt me so badly. But the context that you just gave made so much sense, because in a past life, we were actually together. They went to psychic, and the psychic told them that we were together, but we could not be together. Basically, what happened is I died, right? And she felt like I left her.
Yeah.
So in this life, she actually left me, and I couldn't really understand, because I thought, well, since we know that, let's try to make the wrong of the past right. But I guess the trauma for her was so difficult that she repeated the pattern, but instead of it, me.
It wasn't because of the trauma was so difficult. You had to be left behind too, as she was left behind by you. You had to experience that
Interesting.
this lifetime. So why we are in this lifetime is why we have these blueprints, why they have these situations, is because there are certain things we need to go through, like this is the part of the game. Like, okay, you need to experience this, you need to experience that. Okay, so Todd is going to experience this heartbreak because whatever reason, because last, So there is certain things you need to, for example, in one life you are a killer, in the other life you are the one who were murdered. It's the same situation. It's like in every lifetime, you have hundreds of lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes. And in all of them, you have to experience certain things. You go through nearly everything in these 800s or thousands of lifetimes.
Yeah, very interesting because me, in my case, I died. But in this time, I didn't die. But okay, I guess it's mad. Life is, the more I do this journey with the podcast and talk to interesting people like you, I'm realizing that life is a massive, massive mystery. And I think that where we're at now, we're just scratching the surface on like past lives, our true potential and power. And I find it very fascinating. So, guys, we're going to take a very, very short break here just to say if you've been feeling sparks of recognition during this conversation, maybe a memory surfaced, maybe you thought of your parents or grandparents, I want to invite you to pause and share it. Drop your reflection in the comments because your story might be the exact thing another listener needs to hear. And if someone close to you is carrying pain that words can't explain, send them this episode. You never know how one sharing can open up a door for healing. And also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246 or the Conscious Man 7 podcast and tag us with your biggest insight from this episode. Now, can you share a powerful transformation you've witnessed through your work that still gives you chills?
I had so many. Yeah. So as I was able to dive deeper into my multidimensional existence, and diving into my past lives and diving into communicating more with ascended masters, and then when I was like in this journey with them, I felt like life becomes easier and easier, because you learn more and more about it. Like, as you say, that we're scratching the surface, but because I had the access, because I was able to go deeper and deeper and experiencing wider truths and wider things. And many times I was actually sick when I was able to channel even more situations, like more modalities. So, for example, once I had a flu or something, I was in bed and I was asking the angels for help, and then that was when they sent me a very powerful experience, a healing experience. And then later I created a meditation about it, and then I helped my clients with that, So every time I'm going through some challenges or having some downtime, I always use it to connect with the other side and gaining more knowledge or gaining more more modalities or techniques or how to get out of it, how to heal from it. And then I use it with, obviously I teach it immediately in my group or in to my clients. So it's really fascinating, and then I really enjoy it. I really love it. It's like I really feel like for me going to the other side is like for other people going into the corner store, It's like it's just fun and easy for me now to step through the veil and then to just ask for advice or co-create together and those kind of things.
Okay, very, very interesting. And it's very surprising you said that you like were ill and you were able to channel. I would have thought it would be the opposite because normally when you're in that state, I would think you're kind of blocked and you don't really have a good connection. But in your case, it was the opposite.
No, I mean, when you are down, when you're sick, that's when you can get the best connections
Wow.
because you are not disturbed with the world. You're not focusing on your job. You're not focusing on taking care of your kids. You're not focusing on anything. You are just there yourself, and then you are in there like, and even you need support, because I'm not taking medications, never. So if I'm sick, I'm not taking a Nurofen or I'm not taking, pills or whatever to numb me. So basically, I'm there in my pain or in my, in whatever I'm experiencing, and then I ask for help. And then that is coming, what I need to do, what I need to experience, and then what kind of help I need. And then that's which I really love about this support, because they are really supportive. But we need to understand that, for example, angels, they come to help you only if you ask them. They have a free will. So angels not coming to you unless you ask them. The spirit guides, they are always around. They always help you. You don't need to even ask them. They tweak here, tweak there. Like they really can. It's how I explain that how the higher dimension can actually interact with us, we are in the 3 dimension and they are 5, 6, 13, whatever they are, whatever level they are. So how they interact with me is, just imagine a piece of paper, like that's the 2 dimension, a piece of paper, and like a cartoon on it. So it's like a drawing, and the drawing is, there is 2 person there, right? And they can have like a bubble conversation like in a cartoon. So if those people are saying like, oh, I wish I would have a coffee, and you take your pencil and you draw a coffee in her hand, she would be like, oh shit, where is this coming from? They have in 2 dimension, they have 0 senses or 0 knowledge about the 3 dimension. So they don't know who you are. They don't know I drew them, nothing. So, but the coffee was there. So it's like magic. For us, we are in 3 dimensions. So anybody who is in 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever, 13 dimension, and they do something in this 3 dimension, you would think it's magic, or you just think, oh, it's synchronicity, is wow, is whatever.
A miracle.
Yeah, miracle, manifestation. For them is easy. They just, they just come through and they do that. And that's why it's so important to communicate with them, to ask them, to have a conversation with them, with ascended masters, with spirit guides, with angels, and have a real connection with them. And your life is just gonna be so much better.
Well, I guess, would you say then, like, talking to yourself then is a way to tap into that? Because I find that as children, some of us have like imaginary friends. And from the conversations that I've had, it appears that those imaginary friends seem to be maybe a spirit guide or a master, whatever, but it's some entity from not this world. Now, as adults, because we've been through the programming, what I do personally is I actually talk to myself. Like, a lot of people would actually see me in public and think I'm mad, but I'm actually basically, this is what I do. I talk to myself. Even when I'm at home, I talk to myself and sometimes ask questions and get back answers, because that is what I do. But so how then would us as adults be able to then talk to the masters?
Well, you talk to yourself, it means it's like you're communicating with your higher self. And your higher self has the same information like other higher dimension beings about your blueprint. So it can give you, great advice, your higher self, basically. How to communicate? There is one I learned how to communicate. For example, Uriel, Archangel Uriel. Archangel Uriel is really great with channeling and giving you advice. And the easiest way to do it is you take a piece of paper, you grab a pen, and then you write it down like, dear Uriel, dear Archangel Uriel, please come to me now. And this is my question. So you write it down. Would you tell me if I should do this or not? Or would you tell me how to do this and this? Whatever. You write down the question, and then you pull a line, and then you start writing the answer. And then you say, dear Todd, like Uriel would write it, right? And then you continue, whatever comes to you. You write the whole letter. You will see that whatever you wrote down, it wouldn't come out of your mouth, because it would be a different wording, it would be a different way of explaining stuff. It's really great to see like what Uriel is actually sending you as a message through you, It's really fascinating. And I do this exercise once in a while in my group as well.
I am going to try that because, like, again, I'm a bit of a hybrid where I find things on my own, and I tend to lean in a lot more now into intuition. So one of the things that I do is when I'm in a meditation, I literally talk to myself, and how I start it is like I speak to myself as if I am God, because really I am. But I and it's something that I do personally that I can share here for other people. They can try for themselves. And this, because I've read so many books and I look a lot of things like what Yeshua said. And I would say when I'm in a meditation, I would say, hello, Todd, you are my son and I'm well pleased. And when I started like that, like even now I'm starting to vibrate now, even seeing it like that. And when I'm in a meditation state, I literally talk to myself. And sometimes like I get like when I'm in between like the worlds, I am asking myself, am I actually making this all up? Or is this actually like coming from another place? Because I'm like, sometimes I'm like fully over there. And then like as I'm coming back to the Todd in the 3D and I'm just in between, I kind of ask myself, am I just trying to tell myself the stuff I want to hear? Or is this just what it is supposed to be, right? But what I do know is that whenever I listen and I do, somehow it just works out. So I have just stopped questioning and just trust. And this is how I live my life now, where whenever the voice, because sometimes the voice comes in, that's how I describe it. When I'm in my awakened state, the voice comes in and the voice talks, and it's generally very short sentences. One was do podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I knew this is what I'm supposed to do podcasts, and I repeated it. So I don't get like these long things. It's always like three,
Of course.
2 words, maximum 4, but it's generally 2 to 3 words. And it's very clear, very distinct. And like for me, I guess maybe this only came after doing several years of meditation. And you had mentioned like meditation before. So like what role do meditation and energy practices play in healing trauma at its root?
So I want to go back to what you just explained, just give some other
Okay, sure.
things to this, that when you were meditating and you said you felt you are the universe and you're talking to yourself, that's when you're stepping into the superconscious. So you are in that moment in your superconscious mind, which is part of the big superconscious, obviously. So you have a great access to those informations. So you can get the information you need. So then you coming back from the superconscious mind into your own, subconscious and conscious later when you finish. So the other thing you were mentioning, I wanted to pick on that. The words, like when you say that you hear those words, I just wanted to clarify to people that you don't really hear it. It's coming into your mind as an idea, right? It's just appearing in
Yeah.
your mind as an idea, is not something what you hear with your ears. So that's, I just wanted to clarify to people, because sometimes they are like, how should I know what is channeling? How should I know where I'm getting these things? It's just appearing in your mind as a message, right? As an inner knowing. And then that's like when sometimes it's a couple of words, as you said, and it's like a nudging thing, right?
Yeah, because I don't know how else to explain it other than I call it the voice.
Yeah.
And for me, that is just like how the messages are simple, I call it the voice, which is 2 words. And it just comes in, it interrupts everything.
Yeah.
And it's an idea or a thought, but it is loud. It is palpable.
Absolutely.
It's almost like if it had a loudspeaker in my brain, the entire neighborhood would hear. That's how loud it is for me when I receive it. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
so this is why I call it the voice. But it only came to me after several years of meditation, where I
Absolutely.
started to tap into it, and I started the same way. Like, thought you are my son, I am well pleased, and then I'm able to access the information. The thing is with me is that I get a lot of like, because I've read so many books and I've tapped into like, and I've done a lot of psychedelics and stuff. So I've definitely opened up a portal to the higher dimensions. And I'm just a what shall I say? I just follow the stuff that I'm told to do. So when the mother, father, God, or source, or whatever word you want to use that feels comfortable for you, whenever it tells me do, I stop questioning and I do. I realize that when you tap into that higher frequency, the instructions are very clear. And every single time I've not followed the instruction, there was pain. And I'm tired of the pain because I've had many years of it. So I just say, okay, whatever. And I just do. So, this is why I try to tell people that, maybe sometimes like psychedelics can work for you. It worked for me. Maybe something else. Maybe meditation. So you had mentioned meditation previous. So what role do meditation and energy practices play in healing trauma at its root?
Yeah, so I have clients who comes to me with like severe panic attacks. So when normally I don't do energy healing on clients if they come to me with depression or anxiety or some triggers or some feeling lost issues, then I go straight into meditation practices and the source memory healing. But when someone is having a severe panic attacks, they can't meditate. They are so much panicking, crying. They are really so disturbed. They can't sit still a whole meditation. It's impossible for them. So then I need to start with energy healing. So then also with dieting, maybe it seems like they are lacking, they have deficiency in vitamin B or iron. That's why they are having such a severe panic attacks, basically. And so we start with the dieting, with the vitamins and supplements and the energy healing. So the energy healing is like I send them Reiki healing like 5 times, maybe in the first week. And after that, they already feel more peaceful and they can start doing the meditation. So the meditation is the samadhi I already explained, is not just, as you activate the pineal gland, is not just bringing you into that peaceful subconscious level, but it also starts producing necessary hormones and an extra boost because you get into a brainwave, which is you actually are in deep sleep. So what are the hormones like oxytocin, melatonin, serotonin, growth hormone? You start to produce it in an extra boost. What happens to you is that you start to become a better person, a kinder person because of the oxytocin. You're also going to have a better sleep. You're going to have a better mood because of the serotonin, and then you're going to have a more vital body. So just doing the meditation is already shifting many people who I know, and they reported me back, who haven't even started to work with me, just use my meditation from my YouTube channel, from my community. So they already said that I'm changing. I'm different. I respond differently to the outside world, and then even people recognizing it on them. So that extra boost of those hormones is already really positive, and that's what they reach through that meditation. And going deeper into the releasing traumatic experiences, you need to get into there through the unconscious mind. You need to access the unconscious mind, and that again starts with the samadhi meditation, to the transcend into the unconscious, accessing those memories and basically release them from your multidimensional existence. And then that's how it released from your system, going back to the supreme pure consciousness. You release those negative emotions, basically. What happens in the memory, when you get into those memories, you need to collect the negative emotions you feel there. And we release the negative emotions and we replace them with positive ones and with light. And then you do the forgiveness, and that's how it's complete. So it's a guided work, basically. And it takes, as I said, 2 hours sometimes. But the most pivotal things are like, the funny thing is like how it's rewrite the past. Some people actually can see that the past is rewritten. Like in my case, when I have a memory and then I do the healing on it, and at the end, very end, before we do the forgiveness part, there is a part when we go back to the memory after the release, and we are in a column of light. And in that column of light, I see that the memory actually totally different, the outcome. So it's like you're watching a movie, let's say the first movie, and then you release, it's changing the whole energy, and suddenly the movie is different. Like the outcome of the movie is different. Like, for example, in one of my past life, I was burned as a witch on fire in Germany. They were burning witches there. So, and then the triggers in my current life was I was scared. I don't know, I had some fears around certain things, and I had maybe anxiety. I don't know whatever I was healing, but that brought me back to that past life when I was, of course, afraid to burn or die or whatever what is, So when I released that, and then I went to the point to see it under the column of light, what's happening, I was actually saved. I didn't get to the fire. So it completely shifted that past memory into a different outcome, because there was a situation when I was saved from the prison before they put me on fire. So basically you completely rewrite the past here, but it's starting with releasing the emotions from that and replacing with positive emotions. So obviously the whole story shifts, because everything is energy and the emotions are energy too. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So just having access to the full memory shifted pretty much everything. Okay. So I've had people come to me before, Todd, I've done psychedelics, meditation, breath work, like nothing seems to work. So how do you guide someone who feels quotation marks blocked and can't access the root of their pain?
Let's see. So when they come to me, it's really rarely. I would say like maybe 5% of people who sometimes have difficulties not to seeing memories. When we go through the process and then they do the meditation, they go into transcendental state. And then maybe the memory is not coming, or they having difficulties to come to the memories. Then we start with sensations. Sometimes they start with sensations. They say, oh, I feel this and this, but I don't see anything, or sometimes is just a word come to them. So then we work with that word, how that word makes you feel. And then the memories start to come, so sometimes they think they are blocked, or sometimes they feel, because it's so deep, sometimes it's so buried in the unconscious mind that it feels like it's hard to access. But there are certain steps you can calibrate into that moment, where was that trauma, and basically reach that and release it. So I would say it's really rare that I encounter someone who's having difficulties. It's kind of easy to them to step into and go through the healing. And I also recommend them, obviously, to practice the meditation before they come to me for the healing. So they more into, going into transcendental state several times. So that's why I used to, like, a long, long time ago, I used to do one-on-one sessions, and used to do like one sessions, But then I realized that in one session, I hardly can help them with anything. It's like, okay, maybe one trauma can be released in one session, but there is like so many other things they dealing with in life that um, next week they're gonna have a different issue. So it's that's why I created programs when they have access to a lifetime access to the meditation library, or lifetime access to my online course, and basically having with me several sessions when we are making sure that the most burning situations are actually healed in his life, in the person's life. So it's one session is I feel like is just the surface. It's just like one thing. Like maybe it's related to their relationships, right? With the relationship with their spouse, but then they have other issues at their co-workers or with the company. For example, the person I talked about, the raping, we did several sessions, but the first situation was about, obviously, the PTSD, obviously the flashbacks, obviously being the fear, having the fear that what if I go out and meet them again, So we had to heal that fear. And then the next one was like about, I'm actually sometimes very angry with my coworkers, or I can't deal how to respond or how to react at work. Sometimes I got really angry. So then the same memories we had to go back to heal with this different situation in life. So sometimes those memories are actually closing different situations in your life, different way of acting in different aspects in your life, creating difficulties for yourself. So most of the time, like, you're going back to those really bad memories and healing or releasing different emotions, because maybe it wasn't addressed at the first time, or it wasn't addressed the same way because it wasn't coming from the same current feelings or emotions. So it's a work. It's it takes sometimes time, but it's not as long as many people say, like, oh, it's a lifetime, or they say like when I hear people like they say, oh, I'm going to speaking therapist for 7 years, I'm like, holy shit. And then they only get to the point after 7 years having the awareness that actually what's happening to them. Like literally, I had that conversation with someone who said, oh yeah, I'm going to a speaking therapist and I'm going for like 7 years, and then the results is that I'm having the awareness that I'm actually reacting to triggers. I was like, okay, cool. And what do you do with that? Oh, when I see that, sometimes when I get really triggered, then I just take 5 days off, like setting boundaries, like being a hermit, because they don't know what else to do it. Or it's like what they teach when you go to a psychotherapist, or you go, I even had the chance, it was really interesting. I was in a conversation with a person who had panic attacks, and we went to it was a doctor's office, right? A psychotherapist or whatever. And he came to the doctor with the panic attacks issue. I was a translator, and I was able to see how they treat that. And what they were doing they tried to manage the situation. Like, okay, when you're feeling that the panic is coming, what you should do, right? But what I do is I want to prevent that situation. You don't even should get there. You don't even should get to the point to feel I'm getting panicky. We should actually do the healing the way like it's completely stopping, and you don't even have that situation to start panicking and dealing with that. Because they were saying like breathing techniques, they were saying like think about the elephant in the room or whatever, or start smelling things, or focus on your five senses. At the very beginning of my panic attacks, couple of my strategy was, for example, playing tennis. I realized that playing tennis is extremely great for mental health issues, because you need to coordinate so many things: your hands, your feet, your ball, you're looking at the ball. So my panic attacks got much better when I was playing tennis, but it was like more than 20 years ago. And then the other thing I realized, that my panic attacks was better when I was drinking water. I always had a bottle of water with me wherever I went. Like if I went to a concert, it was my early 20s, so I didn't want to miss a good concert, for example, but I was freaking out in crowds or in places like that. Or so I always was carrying a bottle of water and I was drinking, because that's like you focusing on a sensation, one of your physical senses. So you're not focusing on what you're thinking, because the panic is coming because you're thinking, and you are afraid that something is happening to you. So as soon as you focusing on your physical senses instead of your thoughts, then it's managing your mental health issues, but it's just still managing. It's not gonna heal it or resolve it. So that's why it needs to go deep and heal it from there. And also the diet is really important, because what I also realized in my life and in other people's other clients' life is that they have more anxiety and more stress and more panic if they don't have the right diet. Like, for example, they are vegan or vegetarian and they don't pay attention to make sure that vitamin B and iron is actually added by supplements or something. They are already feeling that they are more reactive. And the other thing is caffeine. Caffeine is like, I have people who has a severe anxiety, and then I ask them, do you drink coffee? And they say, yeah. I'm like, that's the first thing you need to get rid of if you have anxiety. Come on. So there are some very easy ways to start feeling better. If you have mental health issues, just start with your diet. You just start with, make sure that you have no deficiencies in vitamins and nutrients, and stop drinking coffee, stop drinking alcohol, and sleep better. And that you're going to already feel much better.
Yes, and I always say to people that you need to work on things on a multi-dimensional and multi-level way in order to really heal yourself. I always talk about working on yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. So, for you, then, why do you believe true healing has to happen on the physical, emotional, and spiritual levels together? I know why I believe it, but I want to hear why you think that. that is the way to heal.
Because that's what I realized, through my journey as well, in my body and in my clients, that is not enough. It was so funny. Sometimes clients comes to me when they are really, when I was working with a really spiritual crowd, sometimes they were coming to me and they say, after I did this and that, I feel so drained. Do you think that person had some bad energy? Or do you think they were already thinking like on spiritual ways? And I was like, no, you just should go to the gym because you got exhausted. So you just need to train your body. It's not the other person is draining you. So basically, sometimes they are so caught up on the spiritual things that they forgot about their physical needs, Or of course, there's the other way around as well. So there are people who are really grounded and they only focusing on the physical and they say, oh, gym is my therapy. I hear it so many times. They say, gym is my therapy. And then I had a client who were complaining to me that my husband, when he got triggered, he's going to the gym. And then now he's going every day. And now now what's happening is that the guy going to the gym every day, but now is neglecting the family, right? So, and then the poor woman has no free time because like whenever she would have some free time, and then the guy is supposed to take care of the kids, he's going to the gym because he's triggered. So gym is not a therapy, okay, guys? It's good for you, but not every day because you feel mentally off. Do different stuff, not just gym for therapy. Right?
What you said is what I say, but in a slightly different way. And this is from my observation. I find that there are, not everyone obviously, but there are a lot of people in the spiritual crowd that that's all they focus on. But when you look at how they look physically, most of them are they're not in any good shape.
Yeah.
And then now when you look at a lot of people, obviously not all, that are in the fitness industry, they have fantastic bodies, but they have no level of, they have a low level of consciousness and they're not really spiritually in tune, right? And then you find that there are people now that are all about mindset and making money and career and stuff. But then at the same time, when you look at how they look physically, they may not necessarily look really well because they're married to the job and just about success and stuff. So this is why I always call myself a hybrid. I mix all them together because for me, I see that if you really want to be the God man, you have to work on yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually together. This is why in my training programs, I introduce things like meditation. And I check up on my clients all the time for their meditation. I create specific habits for them to do because the habits, like how you were talking about with the tennis, that I get them habits to do that will help now to realign them in the energy that is positive. So, for example, do an enjoyable activity a couple times a week. So that's going to reconfirm now, okay, me getting into shape and me doing my meditation makes sense because I'm enjoying myself at X, right? So one of my clients, she had like pickleball. So I said, great, that is your enjoyable activity. Do that a couple of times a week, right? And then me now, I said, well, look, you need to still work on your mindset. So I recommend books for them to read. And then sometimes we'll talk about, and these, because I've read a lot of books, so it's easy for me to recommend books. So we will talk about the stuff they're learning in the books. And because I mix all of those things together, my clients get shifts. They get internal shifts and they come back and tell me, Todd, like, just felt like this huge shift happened in me. And two of my clients recently told me that they've had shifts that they didn't even think were possible. Is because now I align everything together, similar to how you think, whereas like I put all them together. We're going to read books now that are going to teach you things. The exercises are going to raise your energy. So you're going to be open to learning. And then the habits now are going to give you that feeling like, you know what, this is all worth it. And you will most likely want to continue and eat the right set of foods and have consistency and stuff. So yeah, I totally agree that they're not separate. They're actually the same thing, but just slightly different sides of you. So that's why I always say that you're a mind, body, spirit complex, and you must work on all three at the same time. So, there are a lot of people that who fear opening quotation marks Pandora's box, right? So how can they begin healing safely without having the fear that they're opening Pandora's box?
Interesting, this question, because I had people who told me like, yeah, they actually afraid to step into their unconscious mind. They are afraid to activate their pineal gland because they heard maybe stories that, oh, what if I open up to entities or to other bad energies and stuff. But that's also on you, and they can come even without you doing the activations. I mean, you can be always threatened by those entities unknowingly, because as I said, if you go into negative emotions and your aura is breaking, they can come in. So it's like, is you not allowing more negative in, you actually blocking yourself to elevating, you blocking yourself to move to your next level. And there are so many ways you can protect yourself. So with actually the samadhi meditation, when you invoke the light, into your body, and you are actually activated, then those negative emotions, negative entities or energies not gonna come to you. So it's a daily meditation. If you stick to the samadhi, for example, or if you do some like morning rituals, when you fill up yourself with light energy from the superconscious, then basically you create like a shield around you with that energy, with that light energy, then you are protected. So I think people who's experiencing some negative experiences, like through their awakening or through their meditations or through their practices, is because probably they were taught wrong, or they were doing some maybe I don't know, probably they stepped into some practices with certain masters who didn't teach them correctly, or who give them tools which they were not ready to do. So I always think that you should listen to your good feelings, like who to work with, and then maybe if you do the first thing with them, just have the awareness, like, oh, this first session, how that made you feel, or how was it. For example, I had a situation many years ago that I was trying out a certain meditation with a certain person, and it felt not good. It felt like, I don't like this. And then years later, I still was like following the person, because I was still intrigued, because it was very powerful what he was doing. So I was following him. So I was joining one of his weekend training, and I got extremely sick the second day from the training. Like it felt like my body was like in pain and everything. And I knew that it's basically not because he was doing something wrong. It was because my body wasn't ready to experience all that energies, or all that transformation, or all that activation which I went through. And then I took many years, like 2-3 years, I didn't do any of his trainings or meditations, because I was like, probably I'm not there yet. So after like many years passed by, I tried again, and then now I'm ready. So now I was able to doing those kind of meditations or like practices. So what I'm saying is that sometimes you are not ready to certain labors, and that's okay. But just pay attention how you feel when you try out some new experiences, and then you can know it, like from one meditation, or from one practice, or from one experience with a guru, or with a trainer, basically how that makes you feel. And if it feels off a bit, or then you don't need to push yourself, maybe because maybe you are not ready yet, then just take your time.
Okay, very interesting. I guess that is in line with going with the gut feeling, the feeling inside of you that just knows. Because I try to tell people all the time that the first feeling that you get is generally the feeling that is the right feeling, because it's from a higher place. But then what happens is that the mind kicks in, and then it's like, oh, Todd, man, remember what happened last time? Well, you failed and XYZ. So yeah, I like what you said about the feeling, because I find that that feeling is generally the right feeling and you should go with it. So how do you see ancestral healing contributing to humanity's collective evolution?
Yeah, it's many people think that we don't need to heal our ancestors, like because they are not here anymore, they are on the other side. Why do they actually need healing? And then the interesting thing is that when they pass away, they leave behind their physical body, but their spirit is still the same. So they carry whatever happened to them in this lifetime or past lives. They all have the shames or guilt or the pain. Everything is still there in their spirit. So what they just left behind is the physical pain. So in that case, of course, they are happier because they don't have physical pain, but they still have that emotional baggage. They still carry it themselves as spirits, and it actually affecting us through ancestral trauma. And then if you are helping them through ancestral healing to heal that, it's coming down to you energetically, and this bettering your own life, because it's everything is energy, so it's just connected. And it's really important to take care of our ancestors also in on a healing way, not just they're going to their tombs or into the cemetery or whatever, but also helping them to heal if you know how to. The other thing is that when we do a source memory healing, because you are connected to the ancestors, and then in the source memory healing, one of your layers is the ancestors. So we actually also healing ancestors during source memory healing. But there are other ancestral, other family unconscious meditations and ancestral healing meditations I provide to my clients, where we actually help them to heal all kinds of relationship issues. And it's so powerful because no one else can help them, just you, because you have the knowledge, or you have the way how to do that. And sometimes ancestors can stuck here in this realm and unable to go to light, and that's what's called also the ancestral defect. And what's happening is that sometimes your ancestors can die on a very sudden way, and they don't know the spirit where it's up and down. They got distracted in the sudden death, and then they're not going out through the root chakra, the spirit, but they can come out of the nose or eyes or ear, the spirit. So then they got stuck here. So there is a certain prayer, there's a certain meditation to help them to go to light. And it's not just helping these ancestors to go to light who's around you, but also other spirits who may be stuck here. And what's happening, why is it so important to have them to go to light? Because they stuck on your aura, because they know you are their family member, and they need help. So they are around you, they stuck on your aura. Of course, they waiting for the time you breaking down emotionally, and they sneak in and using your body. So obviously sometimes I don't even want to say. Oh, they love desires, they fulfilling their desires. So they come into your body. Sometimes maybe it's not you who's having sex, but your grandpa or grandma or whatever. So the thing is that when you feel a bit off sometimes, and then you feel like, oh man, I just want to eat some spicy food, but you normally don't like spicy food, and then you just maybe had an argument with someone, or you feel bad, or you feel like negative emotions. It's happening that sometimes your aura break, these ancestors comes in, and they have their cravings and want to use you to enjoy those food or ice cream or whatever it is, or sex or whatever you feel to have the craving. So in this specific meditation is also we bring in that they fulfill their desires, and we should also fulfill our desires in this lifetime, so we don't create the same situation for our lineage, right? So basically, to do this meditation is why we do it, the release, the ancestral defect release. So these spirits who's around you, they can go to light. So you got liberated. You suddenly feel after this meditation like you got lighter. And how you feel it, that also in your life, like you felt stuck, you felt like less motivation, you felt like you don't want to do certain things. And then when you do this ancestral defect release meditation, suddenly you feel empowered. Suddenly you feel encouraged because you are lighter energetically. They're not weighing your aura anymore, those spirits. And then you also getting rid of certain weird addictions, or habits you had. So there is so many levels you can experience the benefits of helping these ancestors to go to light. And then also they said it's sending blessings from the other side, helping with some luck or magic because they are happy that you send them up there.
Very interesting about like addictions and sex and cravings from ancestors. I've never heard about that before. So I guess, I mean, like I said, man, life is a massive mystery, and to think that your ancestors can enter your body temporarily for those things makes fascinates me, because it really shows that everything is all connected. And like even your relatives that you said maybe have liked spicy food and you're not really a fan of it, and you just get a craving and you're like, huh? Why am I why do I want to eat that? I don't even like it, because you get indigestion. And then you eat it and then you get indigestion. It's like, but why? So okay, that's very, very interesting. So with so much global trauma, war, loss, displacement, can individual healing really impact the whole?
You mean individual healing impact the whole planet, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So of course, like what happened to the mass consciousness. So we are connected, everybody is connected. We are in oneness with everybody and everything, obviously. So the earth has a mass consciousness, which means the consciousness of people are connected. It was much higher energetically, much more elevated back thousands of years ago. Like, let's say in the ancient Egypt times, or, the Mayans or Aztec times, when there was also more connection with spirits, with higher dimensions. So it was more accepted to be on a higher vibration. So then the programming started, and then they wanted to ask more under control. So everybody started to suffer more, and then the mass consciousness was more dense and more lower the vibration. So when we start personal healing, obviously more and more consciousness is start leveling up. There's always going to be a challenge that the mass consciousness is pulling you back, but obviously if you have like many people start healing and leveling up and connecting with higher dimensions and then being more spiritual, then we are able to lift up this density of the mass consciousness, and then eventually bring in a better lifestyle, a better belief, a better behavior, and basically having more compassion, and then just being a better person into the consciousness. So it could happen, and this is also through many gurus out there, and mentors and spiritual how can I say, spiritual leaders. They always say that let's meditate together, let's do a lot of healing, let's work together, let's level up the basically the frequency, increase the frequency on earth through meditation, through healings, because that could affect the mass consciousness. And it is possible, but we need to be really focusing on that, working together with the super conscious, being a co-creator and not doing it from an egoistic way, and then as we the other thing is that when you start leveling up, when you start experiencing like higher vibrations and then more manifestations coming in, and you are like feeling great, sometimes you're experiencing that you're going up and then you're going down, and then you're going up again and you're going deeper down, and then you're going up again and you're down. So when you're going down is when the mass consciousness is pulling you back. So they don't really allow you to peak out, because they kind of like hammering you back energetically. So that's why it's so much work to stay up there, because some energy is going to pull you back. The mass consciousness is pulling you back. So it's possible, but it's tremendous work. It's work of many people. It's doing this together, and then being always in the connection with the superconscious and being in that co-creation is really important, because if you are doing it from an egoistic way, then it's easier for you to be pulled down, basically.
Yeah, I find that even in myself, every time I hit a new level, something always happens and I get pulled back. But what I've realized is that when I get pulled back is actually a lesson. I make some changes and then I go up again.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of look at it now as like, okay, when things are going really well, not that I try to bring it on, but I expect that there's going to be a challenge that's going to knock me down. And now when I get a challenge, even though obviously I hate when it happens, I'm like, okay, I've been here before. So that means then that I have to change something, or there's a lesson to be learned, or I need to look deeper. And I would say every single time I've actually done that introspection, I've actually solved the problem and improved from where I was before.
And
So
the biggest lesson I think what we need to learn when we're going down there is, like, when we are pulled back again, to surrender and to believe that actually I'm with the superconscious. I am actually in that label, and to surrender to that, and then the pullback is not gonna happen that much, because you disconnect yourself from the lower vibrational energies.
yeah, I agree. And like what I realize in myself is that the time when I am down is less than how it used to be when I first started. So this is why I tell my clients now that, if for example you were down for 5 days and then now you're down for 4 days, actually you've improved,
Yeah,
right? Don't look at, oh, I'm down again, and then the next time it takes 3 days. So that means that because the time down is being reduced, it means then that you're actually going up. So it's very much to do with perception, because the thing that happened is the thing that happened. Is how we perceive it that
yeah,
really makes the big difference.
exactly.
So this is what I teach my clients, and this is what I have to constantly remind myself when it happens, because I mean, like, who likes to get knocked down? Who likes challenges, right? Who likes pain? But I guess is pain both ways. Is pain going up or is pain going down? So I guess it's better to choose the pain and go up, because the suffering is the part that's a choice.
Mm.
So talking about suffering, do you believe some souls choose to carry heavier karmic loads for their family line?
Choose. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would choose that. I had clients who went back to the time in source memory healing. So these clients are the ones who hate their life because they are in physical pain. They have certain illnesses they hardly could overcome, or it was like always some physical challenges, and they were like, or they even had like childhood trauma, all of these things. And then they were like, I just don't like my life. Why the heck I am here? Even though sometimes they have families and they have kids and husband, and they have this constant thought that why I'm doing this, actually, why I'm here in this life. I don't like my job, it's draining me, I'm sick. And then I don't have good, I don't know, I don't feel good with other people. I have social anxiety, all of these things. And when we go back with source memory healing, one of the memory is actually right before they come to life, and they having an argument with the superconscious that they don't want to come, and they know their blueprint, because before you come you know your contract or blueprint, and they say, I'm not going to come, and they push them. And it was several times with different clients. It was fascinating to know.
Wow. So, so, because right, Dolores Karen, she talks about us having these soul contracts, and you pick all the events that are going to happen to you, all the people you're going to get involved with, friends, choose your parents, X, Y, Z. So you're saying then that in those specific cases, they were like forced to come because they had like an
They were
argument with the
not,
super.
probably they were not happy with the list. They were not happy with what was offered, and they were like, hell no. Yeah.
Wow, very very interesting. So, how do you see your work bridging ancient wisdom with modern science?
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. How do you see your work bridging ancient wisdom with modern science?
Yes, I figured out that there is this, how people think about science and how people think about like magic or magical things. And I believe that like when people don't know about something, the science is called magic. Like, for example, when, the fire was like a thing and the people didn't know what is fire, they were like, wow, it's magic, right? And then, of course, later found out what fire is, like it's science. Or like when the earth was flat, like everybody thought the earth is flat and then, oh, it's a sphere. So basically, there is so many things which we used to look at it like magic. And then when we figured out the science behind it, then we called it science. And the ancient, many ancient techniques seems magical or very powerful, techniques. And then some people don't believe in it, or even some people don't believe in reincarnation, or they say they don't believe that, they think this is the life and that's it. So there's so many things in ancient techniques which were there for thousands of years, 60,000 of years. Sometimes they said it was hidden, for many years because people were not ready for it. These Adiyogi Shiva techniques I do, the source memory healing I teach clients is 60,000 years old. And what happens is how it's connecting with the neuroscience is like, if you think about Dr. Joe Dispenza and what he's teaching, and he has a book, Becoming Supernatural. I actually didn't know about the book until I had a client and I started to do meditation with him and doing source memory healing. And he said, I was reading about this stuff by you teaching me. And then he showed me the book. I was like, oh, how cool is this? So I started to read the book. And then, Dr. Joe Dispenza says that he actually proved everything scientifically, about the frequencies, about the energies, about the brain waves, the unconscious mind, subconscious mind, the brain waves. And then he's even saying in the beginning of the book, because he used similar technique to activate the pineal gland, he also bring the light into the cerebellum and then from the cerebellum into the pineal gland when he activates it. So that was interesting to me. And he wrote the beginning of the book that one of the sources where he got this information is the yogis. So like the karma yoga is from yogis, from Kashmir. So these people who's now creating the neuroscience, some of the people like also Vishen from Mind Valley, he also talks about, the person called, give me a sec, about the mind control,
The silver technique?
Yes,
Jose Silva.
Jose Silva. It was one of the first book I read when I was 17, the Jose Silva techniques. So that is also scientifically proven now. All of the brain waves or the neuropaths, subconscious reprogramming, manifestation, visualization. So those are all, again, scientifically proven now. So it's so easy, still not easy, but it's easier to explain to skeptical people if they say, oh, what do you mean about emotions or frequencies, or why do you think that healing emotions gonna heal my physical illness or whatever? Read the book. They proved it, scientifically proven by them, these amazing people, who took the time and money going into laboratories, putting things on their head, checking brainwaves and stuff. So they proved those 60,000 years old ancient techniques.
Okay. So if someone listening right now is at rock bottom, where should they start their healing journey?
Probably habits. I would say if someone is at rock bottom, probably there are some habits they should change, like eating, diet. We talked about it. Probably some dieting, or also what they watch. In one of the Facebook group recently, which is about anxiety and depression Facebook group, one girl was saying, like, it was an introduction and she was in her 20s and she was writing some stuff about herself, and one of them was watching horror movies. I was like, okay. And you have anxiety and depression, I don't know. So there are some habits I would get rid of, certain habits like watching horror movies, drinking coffee, drinking alcohol, not sleeping enough. Maybe they are addicted to their computer or whatever and they don't sleep enough, or there are certain habits they need to start changing. That's the first important, the most important, what they can do first, and that's what they can do alone first, The other thing is that sometimes they are even blocked from changing habits. I can imagine that if they feel like completely depressed, then I always recommend Samadhi meditation. You can get access to Samadhi meditation on my YouTube channel. It's called Magical Karma Priestess. There is a playlist there with several meditations, and one of them is the Samadhi. Or they can join my school community, which is currently free. It's also a meditation library there. So Samadhi meditation is when you start practicing that, you can already pull yourself out of the rabbit hole to a certain level where you can start making changes in your life. And it's because of those hormones, what you start producing, the melatonin, the serotonin, the oxytocin, the growth hormone, and basically the activation. And this meditation also includes chakra balancing. So you start balancing the chakras, and then the activation is start producing those hormones and bringing in the light. So there's like 3-4 benefits what is there just doing that meditation, which could help you to bring you out. Because what you should also start doing when you are at the rock bottom, counting your blessings. You need to get into gratitude. I know your place is maybe the worst ever right now, but you still can listen to us if you're listening to this, or you can still breathe, you're still alive. So count your blessings and that to bring you to the gratitude a bit every day. That would be also good.
Thank you for that last statement, because I have been like the clients that I have now, I have been reinforcing gratitude every single day, even if it's just 2 minutes, 5 minutes, just gratitude, because it makes such a huge difference. Because it is easy to think, oh, your life is so bad. But in the Western world, for most people, obviously there's some anomalies, yes. But for most people that listen to my show, they're in a Western country, they're in a second world country, and even, to be honest, in third world countries, unless you're in extreme situations, there's always something to be grateful for. And when you start focusing on gratitude, you realize, actually, you know what? I have everything that I need. I don't necessarily have everything that I want, but if you have everything that you need, that's actually more powerful, right? So thank you for reinforcing that, because it's something that I tell my clients and I practice every day, in the morning or in the night, or even sometimes in the afternoon. I have like an alarm on my phone that goes off at 5:30 every day, and I will practice gratitude, and it has made such a big difference in my life. So, in your view, what does a healed man or woman look like in today's world?
Who's relaxed and not getting triggered, so can be patient and relaxed in any situation. As it could be like they are healthy looking, like not overweight, not so healthy looking, vital body, I would say. Having good sleep, no insomnia, or anger issues, or so basically they are a balanced, having a harmonious, balanced mental state, basically, and a vital body. That's what I think. That is someone who healed, which can't get triggered, and then just enjoying life, basically, who finds joy in everything, basically, what and then who's encouraging herself or himself to search joy, like in anything. We talked about perspective, and perspective is so important, because there are certain situations, like when you think like, okay, I need to change my job because I hate my job. So you can always do two things when you are in a bad situation. You either change the situation or you change your perspective, right? So if you can't change the situation because like, oh, if I leave this job, I can't pay my rent, then change your perspective. One morning, just go in and just look at the good things, and then start having actually positive thoughts about that job, not the negative ones. Again, counting the blessings, like what the good about that thing. I was always the person actually who was very optimistic, and then I always looked at the good things in everything. And I think that helped me in many situations, go through all kinds of challenges, because I always looked at the good part. And going through like that, it's made me stronger, or kept me stronger, basically, not allowing me to fall down too often, because I was always seeing the next level. I was always seeing the consequences, always seeing the positive outcomes. And when you manifest, is really important, always expecting the best. I know there should be some risk management, and obviously that's okay. And then should be some, sometimes you feel like I've done everything, I put all the work and nothing happened. Then have the power to rest, have the power and strength to surrender. Because sometimes, yes, there is nothing you can do anymore, but then the superconscious comes in and finalize it for you, and then suddenly everything is there what you wanted. So have also the strength to acknowledge that it's not everything what you have, not you, but everything. Okay, how can I say this? Is a co-creation. So you're not meant to do anything alone. There's always either other people or the superconscious. Somehow the help is gonna come, or the support is gonna come. So it's like when you feel overwhelmed, when you hustle, in this hustle culture, is everybody's working, hustling, and then sometimes they don't see results. But the results would come if they stop for at least a week or a couple of days. They actually completely stop. They switch off their phone. They, just gone from reality. And then the things will come in, what they worked for in the last couple of months. Because finally they don't create resistance with the wanting and with the needing, but they give up. And that is the energy when everything can flood in. For example, today, was it today? Yeah, today I decided I'm not doing anything. I had the day off today, except this podcast. And then at the end of the day, I had 2 bookings. So I decided to work less, because it brings in more. Because when you actually not pushing, you allowing. And I just love that. How can I say this? It's not a quote. It's a part of a movie. There is this the Moses movie, when Moses is on the mountain, and then he got washed off with the mud, and he nearly died. And the God appeared to him, and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna guide you and help you, and you help me." Blah blah blah. So they had an agreement that Moses needs to go to the Pharaoh to tell him some stuff, like you should stop doing this bad behavior and you should do this and this. So Moses went there, talked to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh was like, "No, I'm not listening to you. I'm just going to go on my way and do what I want." So Moses was putting effort into it, but he couldn't get the results. So he went back to God and said, "Look, I've done everything." He didn't listen, so it didn't work. So what now? And then God said to him, like, "Okay, sit back and relax. Now I'm coming." So whenever you feel overwhelmed, whenever you feel you've done so much, like months of work, and then you're just tired, just rest for a week or even a month and see what happens, because things will come in.
That last part that you said, it resonated with me so much, because as you said early in the conversation, that it sounded like I surrendered. And that is literally what happened to me, because for so long I was pushing and trying. And because I was born in Barbados, I became a civil engineer, and that's a very doing sort of industry where it's all about production, and is obviously 95% men, so it's very like that. And I remember once I was in an ayahuasca ceremony, and as we were like almost finished with the ceremony, we went out to the circle and just to sit down someplace else to breathe. And he said to me, "Todd," I'll never forget. He said, "Todd, I know you work really hard, and I know you're doing a lot, but have you ever considered that maybe less is more?" And I was like, because obviously I'm still slightly under the effect of the ayahuasca. And I said, "Oh, you mean less is more? But if I do less, well, I would achieve less." He says, "Maybe that is the problem. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you need to let things happen. And he told me it was a Chinese philosophy. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he said there's a Chinese philosophy that basically is along the lines that sometimes less is more, and you allow things to happen in some situations. And he said that it's very much applicable to when you've been doing, trying, and you think that, and you see that you can't get the result because you've put so much effort in. Sometimes just let go, and like you said, rest. What he was telling me is, Todd, maybe just let go, do less, and just see what comes to you. And it took me quite a few months to understand that, because in my mind, I couldn't comprehend, because I'm like, all of the mentors I've had that have been successful, they all are like, it's all about your habits, Todd. If you have to get up, you have to put in more hours than everyone else. You have to schedule your time. You have to do more. You have to produce. And that's how you make money. That's how you become successful. And to be fair, that is true. But I think that for some people who, if they're honest, that they are doing a lot and going above and beyond, I think in this situation, that you call it surrender, resting, letting go, can help, because there's some people that don't achieve because they just don't do. So the mindset that the coaches that I paid a lot of money for told me would work for them, because they're not producing because they're simply not putting in the work. But if you're putting in the work, you're showing up copious amounts of hours, and it's still not happening, I think for that person, that situation, the rest or less is more is the approach to work, because like you said, it's co-creation, and you can't do it on your own.
And what else also happens when you rest is sometimes you get ideas how to adjust what you already were doing, or you get actually,
Correct.
you start reflecting, and then you see like, oh, actually I should do maybe this or that, and then it's like you're adjusting. So that's why it has to be the thriving and the growing, and then in the growing phase is the adjusting, and that could come when you rest, basically.
Yeah, which goes back to the point of everything in balance, and you have to have equilibrium.
Mm.
So let's get you on this one. So what message do you most want to leave with people who are carrying pain that isn't theirs?
Pain is, you mean like someone else is suffering and they feel sorry about them?
Or as it could be the ancestral pain that they're feeling, it coming from another place that is not necessarily theirs, but they're taking on, and
Mhm.
it becomes their burden.
Okay, so it could be their own physical pain as well. That's what you mean? Like they feel
Yeah,
in their body, but it's coming from maybe other.
another places, yeah.
Mhm. So that's the thing that they can't really determine where is it coming from. So if you have a physical pain, again, we need to look into which memory is coming from. Where is it coming from? We can look into ancestral, or we can look into the traumatic experiences. Why is that pain actually developed in you? But when you were saying that the pain is not theirs, the interesting thing is that in one of my course, the elemental light healer, how I deal with the pain, like manage the, or yeah, how would I take the pain out of the body? Because the pain is also just dense energy. So it's basically the pain created because in that certain area of your body, that energy was like just stuck energy that created the physical pain. And it's again going back to the situation of negative emotions, when you get triggered and the negative emotions is blocking the chakra. So the chakra areas is, a certain area is related to certain aspect of your life. So that's how you feel certain pain in certain parts of your body. If it's like a new pain is not enough dense there or not enough stuck there, you can actually energetically, with energy healing, you can take it out, because it's not you, is a different, it's just energy, everything is energy. So you just take out that pain energy from you because it's not your pain. But when if it's more deeper, more stuck there, longer period of time, or it becomes a big illness or something, then basically you go into the source memory healing, you release the core, and then you probably need more other help with that. But what happens with source memory healing, when I was mentioning the noisy neighbors or other kinds of issues, when it happens with physical pain or physical body, source memory healing is not healing you as an energy healing, right? Is not the same way as it's taking away suddenly the pain, or it's just magically healing that area of your body. What happens with source memory healing is, because we rewrite the past and we create a new future, suddenly either people or information is going to come to you what's the best in your current situation. So let's say you have a pain and you don't know why you have it for weeks now, and it's really disturbing you. So let's do a source memory healing. So you do the source memory healing, it turns out you had childhood trauma, blah, blah, blah. But when you finish the source memory healing, in the coming hours or days, someone or something will appear into your life with the information or the results how to heal that situation. So maybe you suddenly read something about your spin, or you read something about a doctor who actually healed this, or maybe your sister comes to you and say, oh, this drink is the best for that. So when the source memory healing happens, the karma vortex opens up, and is actually, the whole universe is conspiring for your way of healing as a result of that source memory healing. And it's happened to me several times in physical pain, that actually within days I got a certain person who helped me, or a certain diagnosis, or a certain way, and then it was cured something which I was suffering as a pattern for years, because I did the source memory healing. So it's that's how it works. And then with the energy healing, I say it can help you if it's a new thing and if it's just happened recently, or if you choose energy healing, then it has to be extremely consistent for months every day. Like, for example, you have a physical illness, then you need to have like 2 months of energy healing every day, like intense, really powerful, to heal that physical pain, basically.
Okay, understood. This has been a very awesome conversation. I have certainly learned a bunch of stuff. I'm going to try that thing with Uriel and see how it goes for me. So tell the lovely people at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you. Tell us about anything that you have going on right now, how they can work with you, and anything like that that you want to plug.
Yeah, so I have a website, edithbkiss.com, and from my website, you can guys find my YouTube channel and my Instagram and other social media. So if you are interested in my YouTube playlist for my meditation or other videos about ancestral healing or source memory healing, so you can find the link from my website. So it's easy to just remember my name, edithbkiss.com. And I have a school community. So if you feel like you want to get into my community, basically come into my live events. I have Zoom calls where you can ask me questions. We having manifestation, healing practices. One of them is like weekly basis, one of them every second week. And there is the meditation library there as well in the school community. Is actually, if you look for school community, is spelled SKOOL.com. And you just go into the discovery part, and then you search for Release with Ease. Release with Ease is the name of the school community, or you use my name. I think both is good. So in the school community, you have a community where you can post, you can communicate with other people, you find the calendar there for my events, and then the meditation library and other courses and workshops. So it's a lot of programs there and lots of learnings.
Yes, guys, links to everything that she spoke about will be in the description of this podcast. And guys, we're in September now and Christmas is coming up. So we need to start looking at our fitness and, staying in shape because summer is basically over. So if you would like to work with me one-on-one, also to have some great conversations like how I had with Edith today and get into the best shape of your life, you can hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave and send me a message and let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. And if you're on a spiritual journey or you would like to start a spiritual journey and you would like some help to remove some fears and traumas, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. So if you would like to start that process, just hit me up again on my socials at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave, and I'll help you to get some magic mushrooms. And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link to that store will be in the description of this podcast, and it's called Todd and Me. And today I have on the Conscious Man 7 logo on my shirt today. So if you would like to support this podcast and also grab a nice shirt, you can do that. If you do get a shirt, just send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or tag me, and I will shout you in one of the upcoming podcasts, or I will shout you on the stories on social media. And if you would like to also listen to this podcast and you're tired of ads and stuff like that, you can join me on my Patreon, or you can hit me up, or you can join my locals community. Links to those pages will be also in the description of this podcast. That helps us, with things like video editing, and you can also get away from the ads that you will hear on the podcast. Edith, it has been an awesome conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and light with us today. To our listeners, if something shifted in you during this conversation, sit with it, write it down, and most importantly, share it with someone you care about. Healing spreads when you share stories. If you want to go deeper with Edith, check the show notes. You'll find her meditation library, her programs, and ways to connect with her directly. And if you found value here, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share this episode. It helps us grow, and it helps more people find conversations that go beyond the surface. Until next time, stay conscious, stay courageous, and keep walking the path forward to your highest truth. Remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. This has been another episode on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. Adit, many thanks again for coming into the show. And I really enjoyed this conversation, so you're welcome to come back anytime. And guys, remember, change doesn't start unless you actually make a change. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.